What I try to remind people is that you're not just buying an apartment in New York. Sometimes you are really buying a lifestyle, services, connections. There are things when you buy an apartment that cannot change. When those things are just so perfect, they demand a very high price. Hi everyone, I'm Eleonora Srugo, and I'm here today with Estate Media to tell my stories behind the listings. The first listing that we're going to talk about is actually a new development that I represented. It was at the Belnord. The Belnord is a historic building. It is one of the 3 buildings on the Upper West Side that takes a full city block and has these incredible arched entryways and gates with a courtyard or garden in the middle of the building. There is so much history in this building. Marilyn Monroe lived there. Isaac Bashevis Singer, the writer, lived there, and it was such an incredible opportunity to work with Ramza architects, Robert A.M. Stern, to reimagine these incredible pre-war spaces that are just so New York. They really don't get as classic, traditional Upper West Side New York as this. And the finishes were absolutely beautiful. We brought in Molteni and Gaggenau to upgrade kitchens and bathrooms, and there were a series of homes that we've sold. I actually believe the last sponsor unit just sold last week. There was no day that you walk into this building and see the beautiful gates with brocaded design in the archways and the concierge greeting you walking through the courtyard with a beautiful fountain in the middle, and then even just the lobby entrances. There are 6 distinct lobbies in this building, and they all have these original mosaic floors, you know, the sort of little mosaic tiles that have been there for over 120 years. Some parts, especially of this city, should never change. They should be left exactly as they are. And as someone who grew up here and has lived my entire life here, I love those moments when I get to pass through those blocks and see that. 21 East 26th Street is also called The Whitman. I think it is one of the most special buildings in all of New York City. It's actually an old mansion along the north side of Madison Park. It is only 4 units. I think to this day still the longest apartment in New York. It is a contiguous city block. It actually takes 2 minutes to walk from one end of the apartment all the way to the other end. You really don't believe it until you see it. You have to be in the space looking from one window to the other and see the scale of the hallways. I absolutely love the building. I did 3 deals there, 2 as buyer representation and 1 representing a seller. As much as I love the full floors, the Penthouse is one of the most unique apartments in the city. Well, luckily it was designed for an owner that took immaculate care of the apartment and has exceptional taste. It was beautiful. It was actually a very neutral palette, very warm, cozy. It smelled amazing. There are no words. I mean, there was nothing not to love about being in this apartment. It felt like a tranquil spa throughout. I think any client, regardless of their economic stature in life, is about connecting with them, building an authentic relationship, having some sense of vulnerability with them, and understanding the important role that you're playing in what is a very intimate purchase, right? It's where they plan to sort of live and execute their lives. It is the backdrop where they will spend memories with their families, and also it can mean something very significant to them in terms of defining their achievements in life. This seems to be the one that everyone likes talking about. I know it's a big number. I think it said a lot more about where the market was at the time. It really broke a record and set a new standard for what to expect in New York City. What I try to remind people is that you're not just buying an apartment in New York. Sometimes you are really buying a lifestyle, services, connections. There are things when you buy an apartment that cannot change. You can, maybe change the interiors, reposition a kitchen here and there and some walls, but you cannot change the location of a building, the facade. And I think that when those things are just so perfect, they demand a very high price. A couple of things you might not know is that this person started off as a $8,000 rental client. I have known them for many, many, many years. And so I always say, play the long game. Think about forging lifelong relationships with your clients. Don't ever expect that one apartment that they buy will be their last, especially in New York City. People tend to trade up every 7 years. People like to put it out there, if you're a one-hit wonder. I have no idea what that means. I do a lot of 20, 30, 10, $5 million transactions. I'd be happy doing $80 million transactions. I think building, forging relationships is great. Being a part of something that I care about, having sort of a role in makeup and shaping the city and the fabric of my city, those are things that are important to me. Certainly not chasing a certain number. I chase a business that is consistent. So I worked on a very high volume team when I first started. This was before the days of Douglas Elliman Development Marketing or Corcoran Sunshine. So individual brokers would do their own new development. So we would have sort of a volume. If there was a new building, we would just sell the whole building. So that would be like 100 listings right there, in addition to sort of all the resale listings. We would get paid like $500 to sell one of them, even though it was still like very hard. It was like training camp. It was an apprenticeship. The goal was to convert a buyer and to win over a buyer so that they would want to work with you. And then you could actually make 25% of the commission, which was a big jump from $500. So that first deal, I was assigned to one of our buildings on 100 West 58th Street. It was a conversion done by two developers at the time. They each took a penthouse for themselves and renovated an old Rosario Candela building with Gramercy Seagull, actually. So I was responsible for selling those units. This is post-2008 crash. I started in 2009, and I would sit in the lobby from 10 to 6 every day hosting open houses, hoping for someone to show up. The first person that really worked with me was a buyer that I met there. It was a woman who was going through a very messy divorce at the time, and this was the first apartment that she was ever buying for herself. This was her future, her independence. It was a very personal process. And look, it was the deal that really changed everything for me. I was sleeping on a friend's couch at the time. So, the $1,000 that I made contributed to about 4 months of rent on my own sort of first apartment post-college in the city by myself. If I could go back and talk to my younger self who was first starting out in the business, I would talk about how it's really important to have a little bit more of a social life and allow yourself to live a little. So 18 Gramercy Park South is a listing that I'm very excited to have. It is now and forever will be the tallest apartment around Gramercy Park. Gramercy is one of New York's most iconic and recognizable neighborhoods. It is one of the exclusive private parks in New York City. You need a key to get in. You have to live around the perimeter of the park to earn yourself a key. It is just one of those that if you look at the building, you know that it only exists in New York. It's not in London, it's not in Paris, it's definitely not in Singapore, Dubai. This is a New York building, and the apartment itself is so special. It is the penthouse, it's the top 2 floors. It has 4 distinct terraces. It has 62 windows, incredible views of the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, obviously Gramercy Park, Madison Square Park, all the way east over the bridges. It really feels like white glove service in the building. It has sort of the same staffing that you would expect from any Fifth Avenue co-op. It's purely magical, and there will never be anything else like it. The park is fully built. I think it's the perfect place where downtown meets uptown. It has this sort of traditional uptown formality and sensibility, but you're really in the heart of downtown Manhattan, next to sort of restaurants and shops and the farmers market in Union Square. You're really in the heart of the city. It was a challenging but fun win to get to film Selling the City in the penthouse at 18 Gramercy Park South. I'm so proud of it because I happen to have a show where the producers and the cinematographers, director of photography really care about capturing the beauty of New York, where they sort of go frame by frame and think about unique angles that they can capture. And I think that that's footage that the building and the people that live there can cherish for a long time. Being able to see me on the show and see that there is a duality to me, that I can be both, that I can be, tough and stern and very protective over my clients and, ferocious and tenacious when I do a deal and determined, but also sort of be silly and let my hair down and be a little self-deprecating and own my own embarrassments. I think that is all a good thing, and I think it sort of broke a few barriers, and people now maybe see me as a little bit more approachable. And so for me, that's sort of what's changed, is that it's easier maybe to connect with people. I'm Eleonora Srugo, and I want to thank Estate Media for letting me tell my stories behind the listings.